The soft blue light from 10,000 sleeping pods filled the long corridors of the spaceship Eternal Winter. Newell walked between the rows of pods, checking the screens one by one. Her footsteps echoed in the quiet space. She was the only person awake on the entire ship, and some days the silence felt heavy. Pod 4219 status normal, she said, marking another check on her digital tablet. Temperature steady at -196 degrees Celsius. The ship's AI responded in its calm voice. Confirmed, Newell. All readings matched the database. Newell smiled a little. Even after 3 years of being the only one awake, she still found comfort in Snow One's voice. The AI wasn't very emotional, but it was good at its job, helping her watch over the sleeping people. She reached the end of another row and turned to walk back when a red light started flashing. The calm blue glow of the sleeping area suddenly changed. Warning, Snow One announced. Temperature change detected in Pod 1. Newell's heart jumped. Pod 1 belonged to Li Jiva, the mission leader. She ran down the central corridor, her boots making loud sounds against the metal floor. The pod was at the very front of the ship, in a special section. When she reached Jaya's pod, Newell could already see something was wrong. The usual layer of frost on the pod's window was melting in strange patterns. The temperature reading on the screen kept changing. -195, -190, -185 degrees Celsius. It was getting warmer. Snow One, what's happening? Newell asked, her fingers moving quickly over the pod's control panel. Unknown, Newell. The pod systems are working correctly, but the temperature continues to rise. This defies normal physics. Newell looked through the clearing frost at Jaya's sleeping face. The mission leader looked peaceful, but something caught Newell's eye. There was a faint blue glow coming from under Jaya's skin, like tiny stars shining beneath the surface. Snow One, scan for any unusual energy readings, Newell ordered. She pulled up Jaya's medical file on her tablet. There had to be an explanation. The AI was quiet for a moment. Scan complete. I detect quantum activity that does not match any known patterns. The pod's inner wall is also showing strange markings. Newell wiped more frost from the pod's surface. Her eyes widened. There were words etched into the metal, written in ancient Korean characters. They seemed to be appearing by themselves, like invisible hands were writing them. She read the words slowly. When stars grow cold and silence reigns, the Winter Queen shall wake again. Snow One, Newell said, her voice shaking a little. I need you to search the ship's entire database. Look for anything about a Winter Queen, or any connection between Jaya and cold-related legends. The pod's temperature dropped suddenly, frost spreading across its surface again. The blue glow under Jaya's skin faded. Everything went back to normal, as if nothing had happened. But Newell knew what she had seen. She touched the pod's cold surface and whispered, "What are you? What's happening to you in there?" The ship continued its journey through space, carrying its sleeping passengers to their new home. But now Newell understood that she wasn't just watching over sleeping people. There was something much stranger happening on the Eternal Winter, and Jaya was at the center of it all. She pulled up a chair next to Pod 1 and settled in for a long night of research. Whatever secret Jaya was hiding, Newell was going to find out. The safety of everyone on the ship might depend on it. Behind her, the ancient Korean characters continued to glow faintly in the dim light, telling their mysterious story to anyone who knew how to read them. Newell had not left the monitor room for 3 days. Empty coffee cups sat on her desk as she searched through the ship's archives. The mysterious words on Jaya's pod had led her down a path she never expected. Snow One, show me the Lee family records again, she said, rubbing her tired eyes. The AI displayed the files on the large screen. Newell, you have been awake for 72 hours. I recommend rest. Not now, she replied, leaning forward. Look at this. Jaya's great-grandmother was a keeper of old stories in her village. She wrote down many ancient tales about ice shamans. The screen showed a black and white picture of an old woman sitting in front of a traditional Korean house. She wore simple clothes, but around her neck was a strange crystal pendant. Haenul zoomed in on the image. The crystal looked exactly like the ice patterns that had formed on Jaya's pod. A soft alarm sounded through the room. "Warning," Snow One announced. "Temperature changes detected in pods 2145, 3891, and 4002. Haenul jumped up from her chair. "Show me the pod locations on the map." A 3D map of the ship appeared. The 3 pods lit up in red. When Haenul connected them with lines, they formed a perfect triangle around Jaya's pod. She ran to check the nearest pod, number 2145. Just like Jaya's pod, strange marks were appearing on its surface. But these were different. They looked like snowflakes, each one perfectly formed and glowing with a faint blue light. "Snow One, who is in this pod?" Haenul asked. "Pod 2145 contains Kim Yuri, age 25. Her records show she was a student of theoretical physics under Lee Ji-da at Seoul University." Haenul checked the other 2 pods. They also held students who had worked with Jaya. As she watched, more snowflake patterns spread across their pods, connecting to each other like a delicate web of light. Back in the archive room, Haenul found an old book in Jaya's personal belongings. Its pages were yellow with age, and many were written by hand. It was her great-grandmother's journal. Haenul carefully turned the pages, reading the neat Korean handwriting. The ice shamans were not merely controllers of cold. They were guardians of dreams. In the deepest winter, when the world sleeps under snow, they would walk through the dreams of their people, protecting them from harm. Another alarm sounded. More pods were showing temperature changes. The web of frost was growing. "Haenul," Snow One said, "I have found something in the classified mission files." Before launch, Lee Ji-a requested special modifications to her pod. The documents mentioned something called Project Dreamfrost. Haenul looked up from the journal. "Can you access the project files?" "Negative. They are protected by high-level encryption. However, I detect brainwave patterns from the affected pods that match synchronized sleep patterns." Haenul walked back to Jaya's pod. The ancient Korean characters were glowing brighter now, and she could swear she heard whispers in the cold air. Soft voices speaking in an old language she didn't understand. She placed her hand on the pod's surface. It was ice-cold, but she didn't pull away. "You're doing something in there, aren't you?" She whispered to Jaya's sleeping form. "You're walking in their dreams, just like your ancestors did." The ship's lights flickered briefly, and in that moment, Haenul saw something impossible. In the reflection on the pod's surface, she glimpsed a vast ice palace floating in space, its spires reaching toward distant stars. Then the lights stabilized, and the vision was gone. But Haenul knew what she had to do next. If she wanted to understand what was happening to the ship and its sleeping passengers, she would need to wake someone else, someone who knew about Project Dreamfrost. She needed to find Park Do-hyun, the backup medical officer. The process of waking someone from deep sleep was not simple. Haenul stood in front of Park Do-hyun's pod, checking all the settings one final time. The medical officer's pod glowed with a soft green light as it slowly warmed up. "Beginning wake-up sequence," Snow One announced. "Estimated time, 30 minutes. Haenul watched as color returned to Do-hyun's face. His pod was far from the spreading frost patterns that now covered many other pods. She had chosen his location carefully, wanting to keep him away from whatever was affecting the others. "Body temperature returning to normal," Snow One reported. "Heart rate stable. Brain activity increasing." When Do-hyun opened his eyes, they were clear and alert. Haenul helped him sit up slowly as the pod opened with a soft hiss. "How long?" he asked, his voice rough from sleep. 3 years, 4 months, and 12 days, Haenul answered. "I'm sorry to wake you, but something is happening." Something strange. Do-hyun looked around the quiet ship. Jaya's experiment. It worked, didn't it? Hanul stepped back in surprise. You knew about this? He nodded, carefully standing up. His legs were shaky after the long sleep. I was part of Project Dreamfrost from the beginning. Jia knew the long sleep would be dangerous for the colonists' minds. She found a way to protect them. They walked slowly to Jaya's pod. The frost patterns had grown more complex, forming beautiful pictures of mountains and forests in the ice. Before we left Earth, Do-hyun explained, Jaya discovered that her family's old stories about ice shamans were more than just legends. The shamans really could walk through dreams. She found a way to combine this ability with modern science. He touched the ice patterns on the pod. The procedure connected her mind to the ship's quantum systems. She became a bridge between the real world and the dream world. While we sleep, she walks through our dreams, keeping our minds active and healthy. But something's changing, Haenul said. The dreams are starting to affect the real world. Look at all these pods. They walked through the ship's corridors. Hundreds of pods now showed the same ice patterns, all connected by delicate lines of frost. This wasn't supposed to happen, Do-hyun said quietly. The dreams were meant to stay in the quantum field. If they're becoming physical. He stopped walking suddenly. We need to check the ship's course. They hurried to the navigation room. Do-hyun's hands moved quickly over the controls, bringing up a map of their path through space. Just as I feared, he said. We're approaching the frost belt. The what? A region of space with unusual quantum properties. Jaya calculated it would be the most dangerous part of our journey. The barrier between dreams and reality is naturally thin there. Hamnul looked at the map. We enter this frost belt in less than a week. Do-hyun's face was serious. Then we don't have much time. Jaya's dream walking was meant to protect us during this crossing. But if the dreams are already becoming real, he turned to Haenul. We need to find a way into the dream space. We need to talk to Jia. A soft chime sounded through the ship. All around them, the ice patterns began to glow brighter. In their light, Haenul saw shadows moving. Dreams taking shape in the real world. How do we do that? She asked. How do we enter a dream? Do-hyun smiled slightly. There's a reason Jaya chose me as her backup. I was the first person she practiced dream walking with. I can show you the way in. But Haenul, he looked at her seriously. Once we enter the dream space, we might not be able to find our way back. The ship's alarms woke Haenul from a brief rest. Red lights flashed through the corridors as she ran to the control room. Do-hyun was already there, working at the main console. Power levels are dropping, he said without looking up. The quantum core is acting strangely. Haenul checked the readings on her screen. The numbers made no sense. Energy was flowing through the ship in impossible patterns, like water moving uphill. Snow One, what's happening to the core? She asked. The AI's voice sounded different, almost worried. The quantum core's patterns matched Jaya's brainwave readings. They are synchronizing. Suddenly, the lights went out. In the darkness, Haenul heard a soft, crackling sound. When the emergency lights came on, she gasped. Beautiful ice crystals covered the walls and ceiling, growing in patterns that looked like star maps. The dreams are getting stronger, Do-hyun said quietly. The barrier is breaking down faster than we expected. A screen on the wall showed Jaya's pod. The ice patterns around it were pulsing with blue light, like a heartbeat. Lines of frost connected it to more and more pods throughout the ship. Her mind is reaching out to everyone, Do-hyun explained. She's trying to protect them from what's coming. The ship shuddered as it hit the edge of the frost belt. Through the control room windows, Haenul saw strange lights in space, like curtains of shimmering frost. Look at this, she said, pointing to a new reading. The quantum core isn't just synchronized with Jaya. It's connected to every sleeping person on the ship. Do-hyun nodded. Jaya's dream walking created a network. All the sleepers are linked through her mind. But now, Now the network is affecting the real world. Hey Newell finished. Another alarm sounded. Ice crystals began growing across the control panels. Hey Newell tried to brush them away, but they reformed immediately, more beautiful than before. The ship's systems are changing, Snow One reported. I detect new pathways forming in my circuits. They match the ice crystal patterns. Do-hyun touched one of the crystals. These aren't normal ice formations. They're quantum structures existing in both real space and dream space at once. The ship shuddered again. Through the growing frost on the windows, Hey Newell saw more of the strange lights in space. They looked like giant snowflakes, each one as big as a city. We have to enter the dream space now, Do-hyun said urgently, before we lose control completely. He led Hey Newell to a small room near the medical bay. Inside was a single pod, different from the others. Its surface was covered in complex patterns that reminded Hey Newell of the marks on Jaya's pod. This is a dream diving pod, Do-hyun explained. Jia. And I used it for our early experiments. It can connect your mind to the network. Hey Newell looked at the pod nervously. What will we find in there? I don't know, Do-hyun admitted. The dream space was different before. Now, with all these minds connected, with the quantum core involved, he shook his head. It could be anything. The ship trembled once more. The ice crystals were spreading faster now, turning corridors into frozen tunnels of incredible beauty and strange geometry. We don't have much choice, Hey Newell said. She climbed into the pod. How do we find Jia in there? Do-hyun started the pod's activation sequence. Follow the frost, he said. In the dream space, everything is connected. The patterns will lead us to her. As the pod closed around her, Hey Newell saw the ice crystals reach the room's walls. In their reflections, she caught glimpses of impossible places, ice palaces, frozen cities, and landscapes of eternal winter. The dream world was waiting. Hey Newell opened her eyes to a world of endless winter. She stood in a vast hall made entirely of ice. Huge crystal columns reached up into darkness, and the floor beneath her feet glowed with soft blue light. Snowflakes hung in the air, frozen in time. Do-hyun appeared beside her, his form slightly transparent. We're in the shared dream space, he said softly. Everyone's dreams come together here. They walked through the ice hall. Their footsteps made no sound. In the walls, Hey Newell saw moving shadows, thousands of dreamers, all connected in this strange place. Look, Do-hyun pointed ahead. A grand staircase of pure ice led up to a throne. Someone sat there, but the figure was hard to see through the swirling snow. Before they could climb the stairs, a young woman appeared in front of them. She seemed to be made of light and frost. Hey Newell recognized her face from the ship's records. Kim Minji, one of the sleeping colonists. You shouldn't be here, Minji said. Her voice echoed strangely. The Queen is trying to protect us. The space between worlds is breaking. We need to speak with Jaya, Hey Newell said. The ship is in danger. Minji shook her head. Jaya isn't here anymore. Only the Winter Queen remains. She waved her hand, and the air filled with images from the ship, ice crystals growing everywhere. Systems changing. The quantum core pulsing with strange energy. The Queen is building something, Minji explained. A bridge between dreams and reality. She says it's the only way we'll survive the crossing. More figures appeared around them, other dreamers taking shape in the ice palace. Some looked afraid. Others seemed peaceful, accepting the strange changes happening around them. Show us, Do-hyun said to Minji. Take us to her. Minji led them up the ice stairs. As they climbed, Hey Newell saw more of the dream world. Beyond the palace walls was an endless landscape of snow and ice, beautiful but dangerous. Strange lights danced in the dark sky, like the quantum effects they had seen in real space. At the top of the stairs, they finally saw her clearly. Jia sat on the ice throne, but she was different now. Her hair had turned white as snow, and her skin glowed with the same blue light as the quantum core. When she opened her eyes, they shined like stars. "Welcome to my court," Jaya said, but her voice wasn't quite human anymore. It reminded Haynul of Snow One, but also of wind through ice crystals. "You've come to stop me, haven't you?" "We've come to understand," Haynul said. "The ship is changing. The dreams are becoming real." Jaya stood up. Her movement made waves of frost spread across the floor. "Reality is thin in the frost belt. I can use that. I can make the ship stronger, protect everyone inside it." "But you're changing them too," Du-hyun said. "All the sleepers. Their minds are becoming part of this place." "They chose this," Jaya said. "In their dreams, they understood. The old way of traveling through space won't work anymore. We need to become something new." Suddenly, the palace shook. In the walls, Haynul saw cracks appearing, not in the ice, but in reality itself. Through the cracks, she saw the ship, the sleeping pods, the growing crystals. The two worlds were merging. "Time is running out," Jaya said. She held out her hands to Haynul and Du-hyun. "Will you help me complete the change, or will you try to stop it?" The cracks grew larger. Haynul felt the cold growing stronger, pulling at her mind. She had to choose, but which path was right? The ship's fate, and the fate of all its sleeping passengers, would depend on what they decided next. Du-hyun stepped forward in the ice palace, his eyes fixed on the cracks growing in the air around them. Years of medical training and research had taught him to look for patterns, and he saw them now in the way reality was breaking apart. "The quantum effects aren't random," he said, his voice echoing in the vast space. "They're following the same patterns as the ice crystals, the same patterns as the colonists' brainwaves." Jaya nodded from her throne. Her starlit eyes watched him with ancient wisdom. "You always understood the science, Du-hyun. Tell them what it means." He turned to Haynul, trying to explain. "The old shamans didn't just walk through dreams. They found paths between different kinds of reality. Jaya has connected those old powers to quantum mechanics." Haynul watched another crack spread across the palace wall. Through it, she saw the ship's quantum core pulsing with blue light. "The power is the same," she said slowly. "Dreams, quantum energy, frost magic, they're all connected." The palace shook again. More dreamers appeared around them, taking shape from the swirling snow. They were the sleeping colonists, their minds drawn to this place as the barriers grew weaker. "The ship is dying," Jaya said. Her voice carried both sadness and determination. "Its old systems can't handle the energies in the frost belt. But we can save it. We can make it part of the dream." Do-hyun walked to one of the cracks in reality. He touched it carefully, and patterns of frost spread from his fingers. "The quantum frost isn't destroying the ship," he said with growing excitement. "It's rebuilding it, making it stronger." Haynul remembered the ice crystals growing through the ship's corridors. They hadn't looked like decay or damage. They had looked like growth, like evolution. "Show them," Jaya commanded. The air between them shimmered, and Haynul saw a new vision. The ship floated in space, but it was transformed. Ice crystals had become part of its structure, strengthening the hull. The quantum core glowed at its heart, perfectly merged with the dream energy. And inside, the sleeping colonists rested in pods that were now beautiful works of art, their minds safely held in both reality and dreams. "This is what we can become," Jaya said. "Not just travelers through space, but travelers through dreams as well. The ancient powers and modern science working together." Another tremor shook the palace. The cracks were spreading faster now. They had to decide quickly. "There's a problem," Du-hyun said. "The transformation isn't stable. The energy needs—" He stopped, understanding filling his face. "It needs anchors, minds that are awake to guide it." Jaya stood from her throne. Snowflakes swirled around her like stars. "Yes, I can't hold it alone anymore. That's why you're here. I need your help to complete the change. Newell looked at the vision of the transformed ship again. It was strange and beautiful, like nothing humans had ever built before. But it felt right somehow, as if this was what they had been moving toward all along. What do we need to do? She asked. Jaya held out her hands again. Frost gathered in her palms, forming delicate crystals. Take my hands, she said. Let your minds join with mine. Help me guide the ship through its transformation. But remember, if we do this, we can never go back. We'll become part of the dream forever. The palace trembled one more time. The moment of choice had come. Newell and Do-hyun looked at each other. Around them, the ice palace continued to shake as reality cracked. The sleeping colonists watched silently, their forms shimmering between solid and dream. If we do this, Newell said, we'll be giving up our old lives, our old ways of thinking. Do-hyun nodded. But we'll be saving everyone on the ship, and maybe becoming something more than we were. Together, they stepped forward and took Jaya's outstretched hands. The moment their fingers touched hers, everything changed. Newell felt her mind expanding. She could suddenly sense every part of the ship, from the quantum core to the smallest ice crystal. She felt the dreams of all 10,000 colonists flowing through her thoughts like streams of starlight. Open your minds, Jaya's voice echoed in their heads. Let the frost flow through you. Do-hyun gasped as the connection grew stronger. His medical knowledge merged with the ancient wisdom of the ice shamans. He saw how the human mind could exist in many places at once, how dreams could become as solid as steel. The palace around them began to pulse with light. The cracks in reality grew larger, but now they didn't look threatening. They looked like doorways opening between worlds. Now Jaya said, help me guide them through. Together, the three of them reached out with their joined minds. They found each sleeping colonist and gently led them deeper into the dream space. But this time, they didn't leave reality behind. Instead, they helped each person find a balance between the two worlds. The ship's systems responded to their guidance. Ice crystals grew in perfect patterns, strengthening metal and circuits instead of destroying them. The quantum core's energy flowed through these new structures, merging dream and reality into something entirely new. Snow One's voice echoed through both worlds. Ship's structure is changing. New quantum pathways forming. All systems are evolving. Newell felt the AI changing too. It was becoming part of the dream network, its digital mind mixing with human thoughts and ancient magic. The boundaries between human, machine, and dream were disappearing. Through it all, they kept their balance. When the energy threatened to pull someone too far into dreams, Newell guided them back. When the real world's physics fought against the change, Do-hyun found ways to make them work together. And Jaya held the center, her transformed mind bridging all the gaps between old and new. Look, Do-hyun whispered. The frost belt. Through the cracks in reality, they saw the dangerous space ahead. But now it didn't look like a threat. The quantum effects that made it so deadly were the same ones they had mastered. The ship would pass through safely, carried on waves of dream and frost. The transformation spread through every part of the ship. Sleeping pods became beautiful crystal chambers. Plain metal corridors turned into galleries of living ice art. The hull itself came alive with patterns of frost that could adjust to any threat. It's working, Jaya said. Her voice was full of joy. We're becoming what we were always meant to be. Newell felt the truth of those words. This wasn't an ending but a beginning. Humanity had found a new way to travel through space, a way that brought together its oldest magic and its newest science. The last cracks in reality sealed themselves, but not by closing. Instead, they became permanent bridges between worlds. The ice palace was now as real as any other part of the ship, and the ship was now part of the dream. 3 months had passed since the transformation. The ship Eternal Winter sailed smoothly through space, its crystal hull glowing with soft blue light. Inside, life had found a new balance between dreams and reality. Hanul walked through a corridor that changed as she passed. Ice flowers bloomed on the walls, responding to her thoughts. She was heading to the control room, though it wasn't called that anymore. Now it was the dream chamber. Do-hyun was already there when she arrived. He sat in a chair made of living ice, his mind connected to the ship's systems. His eyes opened as she entered, and he smiled. "The last group is ready to wake up," he said. "They've finished their dream training." Since the transformation, they had been waking the colonists in small groups. Each person needed time to adjust to their new existence, being able to live in both reality and dreams at the same time. Jaya appeared beside them, her form shifting between solid and dreamlike. The starlight in her eyes had spread to all of them now, a sign of their connection to both worlds. "Show me the ship's status," Haenul said to the air. Snow One's consciousness, now part of the dream network, responded by creating ice crystals in the air. Each crystal showed a different part of the ship. "All systems are perfectly balanced." The AI's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "The quantum frost maintains our structure. Dream energy flows smoothly." Through the ship's crystal walls, they could see the frost belt all around them. The dangerous space that had once threatened to destroy them now strengthened them. The quantum effects that made this region so deadly were the same ones that powered their new form of existence. "We should record this," Do-hyun said, "for the other ships that will follow." Hanul nodded. Many more colony ships would come after them. They would need to know that there was a new way to travel through space, a way that didn't fight against the strange parts of the universe, but embraced them. Jaya waved her hand, and a crystal grew from the floor. Inside it, images began to form, their whole story, from the first frost patterns to the final transformation. But it wasn't just pictures. Anyone who touched the crystal would feel the experience, would understand in their dreams. "The old shamans knew," Jaya said softly. "They knew that reality was bigger than what we could see. They knew that dreams were just as real as anything else. And now we know too," Haenul added. She reached out and touched the wall. Under her fingers, the ice was both cold and warm, solid and flowing, real and dream. The last group of colonists was waking up. Through the dream network, Haenul felt their minds joining the greater consciousness of the ship. They were afraid at first, then amazed as they understood what they had become. Outside the ship, space itself seemed to respond to their presence. Quantum frost formed in their wake, creating paths that other ships would one day follow. They were no longer just travelers through space. They had become travelers through dreams as well. The eternal winter continued its journey to the stars, carrying its cargo of dreamers. Inside its crystal halls, humans had found a new way to live, to explore, to exist. They had taken the best of their past, the ancient wisdom of ice shamans, and joined it with the best of their future, the power of quantum science. And in the space between worlds, in the realm of frost and dreams, they had found their true home.